I'll see you guys in the dark.
So I'm not sure how many people know exactly what FetLife is, but it's basically a fetish BDM social media site. Facebook for those into kink, basically. It was used a lot for hookups, dating, etc. I was primarily into it myself to read some short erotica that was posted in the forums sometimes, and finding more like-minded friends, but I did eventually branch out and meet some people off of there. Most of them were really cool. Others, not so much. They were just kind of boring. All in all, it was pretty okay, but after talking to one guy and meeting up with him only once, I got really bad vibes and decided not to go any further. He just creeped me out for some reason. He was not ready to give up, though. Things went quiet for a while, and then 2 weeks later, I started getting harassing messages from blank accounts that I'm assuming were all his, as they were all just different variations of the same screen name, but words and letters arranged in a different order. They were pretty harmless things like, "Why don't you love me? I thought we had something special. Hello, please talk to me." Things of that nature. Annoying but not dangerous. Well, one day he shows up to my work. He didn't even know where that was. Now, I did work at McDonald's, so it wasn't that weird. And luckily I work in the back of the drive-thru, and I only saw him out of the corner of my eye when he came up to the front to grab cups, and I didn't think he recognized me. I had my head shaved. It was trendy at the time. And when I met him, I had a wig on. I'd never told him I had a shaved head either. I rushed back, and I told my manager, and he got asked to leave. After that, I didn't hear from him for the next 2 weeks. I got another message from a totally new unnamed account, but this one was much more sinister. I knew it was him. It had to be. When I had only known him online, I had sent him videos and pictures. Stupid, I know. When he found I was dating someone new, he got angry and threatened to expose me. And he didn't know where I worked anymore. He knew where I went to school, though, the names of my mother's sister, where they worked. He knew what stores I shopped at, which friends I hung out with the most. And he knew where I lived. Luckily, nothing happened, and I moved soon after that, and I never heard from him again. But needless to say, I was very spooked and it scared me away from online dating for good. I did make a police report, so maybe that scared him away. But to my FetLife stalker, please, let's never meet again.
I live in a house that is huge and it's beautiful, but there's one problem. I'm often home alone, and our house has giant windows. I'm a 23-year-old girl that's going to college nearby, and I live at home in order to afford school. My mom and stepdad have much more fun than I do in the nightlife, and they go out of town pretty often. We live near the lake in a nice private lake neighborhood that's supposed to be monitored, but it often isn't because of lazy cops. I have no self-defense because I'm so small. Well, in a neighboring town, we have another house, and I used to live in that one. We had bought it so that I could have lived closer to my college as it's 3 streets away. I had a stalker that would often leave gifts, footprints by my window, and letters. I knew who she was. She had been a classmate at my old college, and she didn't accept the fact that I was not interested in girls. So I had to wind up filing a police report, and she had been seen a few times entering our backyard even though we haven't been back to that house in a while. I definitely know the gut feeling when I'm being watched. I'm back at our main house due to that experience, and have been here for the past 4 months now. It's 40 minutes away from our other house, and extremely difficult to find. We live on a road impossible to find on GPS. Only my closest friends have been out here to visit. Well, 2 weeks ago, I called the cops. I had been home alone sitting upstairs, and I saw a figure in our yard. And then I heard doorknobs being rattled downstairs shortly after that. Well, after the cops showed up 45 minutes later from getting lost, they found no one and assumed it was someone attempting to break in. Whoever it was definitely saw me because our windows are huge and located everywhere, and I sit right beside 3 windows that are 15 feet by 13 feet. This house was custom built for my mom and stepdad. We have giant windows everywhere, I'm telling you, including all of the bedrooms. Some of our windows are so big because they previously had belonged to an old church at 17 feet high. Even my room has 4 large windows that luckily fits blinds, but most of our windows are too large for blinds or curtains. Basically, everyone can see into our house, whether they are in the front yard, backyard, in their boat, it doesn't matter. They can definitely see into a big portion of this house, and the house itself is huge. There are 8 doors that I constantly check to make sure that are locked. With all this glass, it's pretty creepy. I have 2 dogs, one of them being an English bulldog. A week ago, I got home and found a framed art print of a bulldog with saran wrap wrapped around it. There wasn't a note or any other clues, so we have no idea who left it. Well, I'm an artist and I often share pictures of my bulldog, so I feel it's aimed towards me. We asked all of our friends, family, and neighbors, and nobody knows who left it. Tonight, I finished some assignments and immediately laid down in bed. After about 20 minutes, I heard knocks on my window. My dog was in the hallway and started barking as soon as it happened. After laying down for 10 minutes frozen in fear, I got up to try to see if there was something or someone out there lurking in the dark. There wasn't from what I could tell. This all happened tonight and I'm still laying here scared. The cops take so long to get out here and would probably get lost again, and my anxiety is so high, I guess from the past experiences. I've called my older brother and messaged my friends to let them know what's going on. All 8 doors are locked. I triple-checked them. Honestly don't know why I wrote this out to tell you guys. It sounds silly writing it, but the feeling of being watched is so scary. And every girl's worst nightmare is to have a stalker who's a man. But you'll never know the true feeling of fear until you have a stalker who's a girl. A week or so before my 10th birthday, I walked to the corner store with a $5 bill and picked up a jar of ragu for my mom. On my way home, a man I'd never seen before fell in step with me, and he began talking. "Hi," he said cheerfully. "My name is Dr. Ramsey. I'm a pediatrician. Do you know what a pediatrician is?" Well, I walked along silently, not replying and fervently hoping he would take that as a sign he should leave me alone. But he kept right on chattering. "Are your parents looking for a pediatrician for you? Of course, you're almost a big girl now. You'll be needing another kind of doctor soon, won't you? That's okay, though. They can still bring you to me. What's your name? You have beautiful hair. I was just on my way to get some suckers for the candy in my office. Do you like suckers?" Thankfully, we were nearing my house, so I ran forward, up the back steps and through the kitchen door. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of a very long, very scary ordeal. It didn't take long after that for Dr. Ramsey to begin showing up. At first, it seemed benign enough, at least to a kid. He would drive by nearly every day, smiling and waving. I told my mom, and she said he was probably just on his way home from work. But that's when the phone calls started to begin. My dad called me into the living room and set me down. He asked about the day Dr. Ramsey followed me home, and if I had talked to him. He said I wasn't in trouble, but I needed to tell him the truth. And I told him everything I knew, and he asked if I was sure. Could I be forgetting something? Told him I don't know, and he frowned. Then he asked, "Then how does he know your name?" Well, it turns out that's not all he knew. He knew my sister's name as well. Pretty soon, neither my sister or I were allowed to answer the phone. He called several times a day. At first, neither of us knew what he was saying. Then one night, one of my brothers told us that he was telling my parents that he was going to hurt me, and later my sister too. Things got complicated after that. My dad had called the police, but all of this was before there was any type of stalking laws. There was not a lot they could do. They told my parents to call back if he tried anything. My dad then called a friend of his from back in the day who happened to be a cop. For the next month, my dad's friend escorted me to and from school. Suddenly, life as I knew it came screeching to a halt. I couldn't walk to school alone. I couldn't play outside. I couldn't walk to Super America. Sort of like a 7-Eleven, for those of you who don't know. When access to me was completely denied, things escalated. It was around this time he began threatening my sister as well. Then one afternoon, my sister, two of my brothers, my mom and I were in the kitchen. One of my brothers saw a glimpse of someone in the garage. They'd seen him too. Dr. Ramsey came bolting out of the garage, my brothers chasing after him. They ran all the way to Cherokee Park, where he lost them in the trees. My parents called the police again, but nothing came of it. The only information they had was a description and a name that was almost certainly fake. A couple weeks later, we woke to find our dog hanging from the side porch. She was a gorgeous saddleback German Shepherd, born the same day I was. We were all devastated. The cops said there was no evidence it was him, and ruled it accidental, but none of us believed that. His phone calls became more informative in the meantime. He would talk about who was home and who wasn't. If my brother would say my dad was home, he would tell him who really was in the house. He always seemed to know. He always would talk about the house itself, about the window in the kitchen he could easily open with a knife from the outside even when it was locked, and about the French doors that connected the living room to the side porch, and how the lock could be opened from the outside if you jiggled it just right. That night, my dad put in some carpenter nails at the bottom of the French doors until he could get a new lock ordered. My parents had to go to a company event for my dad's work. My older brothers were at Saints West roller skating rink. My sister was on the phone with her best friend. My little brother was on the floor asleep. I was watching Devo on the midnight special with Wolfman Jack. It was late. Well, suddenly, the top of the French door swung inward, and in the few milliseconds before the nails in the bottom caused them to snap back, I could see his silhouette. Me and my sister ran upstairs. About halfway up, we realized our little brother was still asleep on the living room floor. As quietly as we could, we slipped back down the stairs to get him. We all went into our bedroom and didn't turn on the light. This way we could see outside. We watched out the window for a while, and when we didn't find him, we crept down the hall to our brother's room to look. We looked down and could see someone standing at the back door. He knocked, loudly. "What do you want?" my sister asked out the window. He stepped back and said, "Is this the Mercy residence? I have a pizza for delivery. Can you come to the door?" She scoffed at him, declaring she was not stupid. She could see he didn't have a pizza, and she was calling the cops. He left. A short while later, my brothers returned home. We told them what happened, and they walked around the yard, watching for him. They came back in, and things settled down. By now, we'd pretty much given up calling the cops because it never helped anyways. So we just went back in, each of us, except my younger brother, still asleep, carrying a knife from the kitchen just in case. Eventually, one of my brothers went into the kitchen to get a bowl of cereal as a snack. You know the sensation you get when you can feel someone watching you? Yeah, he had that in spades. He kept looking around the kitchen, through the doorway into the dining room, at the windows. He didn't see anything, but he could still feel eyes on him, he claimed. So he went closer to the door to try to see better. The kitchen lights were reflecting on the window of the door. It had 3 rows and 3 windows, so he still couldn't see. He stepped closer, then closer again, until he was right up on the door, then cupped his hands on either side of his head so he could see. There on the other side of the window pane was Dr. Ramsey, smiling back at him. He turned to yell for my older brothers, and when he looked back again, Dr. Ramsey was gone. They went out again to look for him, but they didn't find him. The next night we were at the table playing Crazy Eights, and my brother was restless. My sister asked him what was wrong, and he said he always felt like any minute there could be some type of boom 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 on a door or window, like a knock. Well, almost immediately after he finished that sentence, there was a boom 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 on the window right behind him. In the chaos, we all jumped and scattered, and the police were called again, but to no avail. A couple weeks later, I was at school and we were outside on the playground during recess. I was swinging upside down when I saw that familiar blue Ford Galaxy cruising by, moving slowly. There he was, smiling and waving. He called my name, and I ran to the teacher and told her. The school had been told all about him, and she took me inside right away and called my mom. That same day, my mom had gotten a call from the school office asking her to verify that my dad was picking me up, as he'd called to say he was on his way. Well, guess what? He wasn't. Not long after that, I woke up one night, thirsty. I went down to the kitchen for a drink, and there, sitting alone in the dark, was my dad. On the table, a gun. He was tired of the police waiting until Dr. Ramsey tried something. He was tired of his children being terrorized. He was tired of being afraid every time he left for work that something would happen to us while he was gone. I sat with him for a while, watching, before he sent me back to bed. These events and many more took place over a period of around 18 months. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. He had vanished from our lives. The phone calls, the drive-by with the creepy waves, everything. For a long time during that and after the Dr. Ramsey days, I would have a recurring nightmare in which I would wake up to find him standing over me as I slept. It took a long time before I felt like a normal kid again. Well, I found out years later that when he was calling, Dr. Ramsey would tell my parents that he was going to rape and kill me, and later my sister, and that there was nothing that I could do about it. I don't know what happened to him when he disappeared. I don't know if he got into a car wreck or if he went to prison. Something had to have happened to him or he just fell off the face of the earth. But sometimes I wonder if the wait ended for my dad when he was sitting in the darkened kitchen one night. I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to. I don't want my dad to go to jail, but it's kind of fishy that something's going on with the disappearance of Dr. Ramsey.
For some background, I'm a 15-year-old freshman in high school. I moved to my current town in the middle of 6th grade. When I first moved, I met Jay, and we became friends pretty quickly, and it was obvious he had a crush on me. I wasn't interested in dating until high school, so I turned him down when he asked me out in 7th and 8th grade. After rejecting him the first time, he changed. Jay started acting creepy, perverted, and I just got a terrifying feeling in my gut when around him. At my 8th grade formal, he followed me around taking pictures of me. It was pretty creepy, but we started talking again after an incident at school occurred, and I questioned him, which doesn't relate to the story at all. Jay was always very creepy when we talked. He would call me beautiful, sexy, etc., which I told him made me feel very uncomfortable. He asked me out, and I told him no. He started calling me baby and telling me he loved me and wouldn't stop even when I told him to. This is about the time that he starts popping up in the stairwells I needed to use to get to class, and taking long drinks from the water fountain right outside the classroom door I was in. He seemed to just constantly be in the places I frequented. Jay would stare at me in class and give me this unsettling grin whenever I made eye contact with him. Jay gave me the chills, and I was not excited when he told me that he was going to homecoming. I went with a bunch of my friends, and as soon as we walked in, I saw Jay standing around looking for me. I had told Sophie, my best friend, about him, and she noticed him too. Our school is divided into 2 lunchrooms, the large and small commons, which are connected by 2 hallways. One of them had the girls' bathroom and a hallway everyone put their heels in, and the other was a dark hallway that the principal's office door was in. We went down the dark hallway, and he saw me. Jay pushed back a bunch of people to get right behind me and whispered in my ear, "Holy fuck, you look so dang sexy." He just mumbled something and hurried off. We hit the dance floor, forming a large circle of just our friends. I noticed that he kept walking around our group, looking at me as he walked by. We weren't dirty dancing, just having a fun time. I taught my drum major how to do a wobble, and we were really getting into spirits of things. Sophie and I eventually got thirsty and went to take a pee break and get some water after a few other girls. But on our way back, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned back, and Jay was standing there. The following conversation ensued. Jay says, "I need to talk to you." "Okay, what's up?" "I have to ask you something." I'm standing there questioning. Jay asks, "Can you leave us alone?" to Sophie. "I need to speak with her all." Noah, who is a mutual friend, Hey, y'all, what's up? Noah put Jay in a chokehold, and Sophie and I ran out of there. We laughed it off nervously before heading back into our circle. Apple-bottom jeans came on, and we were getting funky fresh when I saw Jay come up behind me. I jumped into the circle and got low, playing it off as Sophie closed the gap, keeping him out. He just paced around our circle, staring at me, just watching. I have really bad anxiety, and I was getting stressed out at this. I was trying not to cry as I felt like prey being circled. Sophie turns over her shoulder when he walks past her. Sophie asks him, "Do you need something?" Jay replies with, "I need to ask OP something." "I don't think you do, Jay. Let me talk to her, please." "She doesn't want to talk to you, Jay." Jay then storms off, pushing a few people out of his way. Sophie takes me to the bathroom to calm down, and eventually we decide if he starts following us again, we'll tell someone. As we're walking out, Jay is standing against the wall, turns and leaves as soon as I make eye contact. We make a sharp right into the small commons where we tell the teachers. Guess what? It turns out we told the sexist asshole teacher at my school, and he didn't do anything about it. I'm unsure of what to do when I run into Stacy and Isabel. Isabel is a senior and a fellow guard member. She's kind of like my mentor. I go up to her and ask her if she's there with anybody. When she tells me no, I ask her if I can stay with her and explain the whole situation. She consoles me and promises to stay by my side. Stacy disappears after hearing what happened. Isabel takes me back, and we start dancing again. But we notice Jay doing laps again, passing our circle over and over. Isabel tells me he is talking to another guy and pointing at me. Then Stacy comes up to me, saying that she told him to leave me alone, but he screamed at her to F off and threatened to hit her if she talked to him like that again. We tried to continue dancing. Then Sophie grabs my hand. I look over to see Jay walking up to me, his hands balled into fists. Isabel puts her arm out and starts to tell him to leave me alone, but he pushes her out of the way. I grabbed my friend and ran. I was looking behind me at him giving chase when I ran smack dab into the principal. In hysteria, I tell her he's stalking me, and he pushed my friend. This amazing principal chases him down, putting him in a holding room. She came back and took a statement from me. Stacy told me she saw him get escorted out. The rest of the night was a blast. I had way too much punch, and it was overall an awesome night. I sent Jay a text this morning, telling him very clearly that we were no longer friends, and that he made me feel unsafe and not to contact me ever again, or the principal would get involved again. Then I blocked him for good. I'll have to see him again tomorrow in class, but I plan on avoiding him as much as possible, and if he talks to me, ignoring him. So Jay, even though I'll probably see you tomorrow, let's not meet again. So now, today, I'm at school, and Jay hasn't tried to talk to me, but he kept passing our lunch table and followed me when I went to the bathroom by myself. I also found out he has done similar things to 2 other girls, who I'm going to try to talk to and get a little more information on how they handled it. My friends have been super supportive, and they're all walking me to and from my classes. I think things might be okay from here on out, but I'll update if anything major happens. 2 weeks go by, a lot, and nothing has happened at the same time. I haven't been sleeping great, and when I do, I have vivid nightmares. The 2 that are most frequent are I'm at school, and he storms into my classroom with a gun, and I'm hiding in the attic, and he's in my house, dragging something heavy on the ground and sharpening a knife, telling me to come out and dance with him. I have this feeling of dread every time I see Jay, but I have been trying to brush it off and not let it affect anything. I really just want to move on, but I have been having a lot of trouble. I noticed the popping up in stairwells and passing the lunch table for the first 2 or 3 days, and then it suddenly stopped. I figured he had given up, until I went to lunch with my drum major, who we'll call Dawn. She asked me about how things are going, and I told her about the frequent incidences where we were nearby, and then them suddenly ending. She proceeded to tell me that she and Isabel had told some other seniors that I had classes with or nearby the problems I was having. Apparently, I'm well liked by the seniors, enough for them to tell him they were watching him and would make his school year the last one here if he did anything else to me, which explains the sudden disappearances. The strangest part is that I don't know who these guardian angels are. I told Dawn to thank them for me, and I've been figuring out who is the spy in the room and just striking up a conversation with them, so don't mess with the seniors. I also told some of my teachers about what happened. I only told the ones that taught classes that I had with Jay, because I didn't want it spreading everywhere. One was sympathetic and promised to seat us away from each other and keep us out of groups together, and the other went above and beyond. I told her about it, and she hugged me, promising me she would help me fix it, and that she would talk to him. I came into class the next day, and before I went in, she told me that she told him to stay away from me, and asked if I could stay after school to tell her about the entire thing. I agreed. Actually, reading my post on here, since it has the most accurate details, I gave more of a background to it. She told me that she wanted to help me. She told me that she thought that there were some serious issues with some of his texting, and that it was emotional manipulation and abuse. She told me the flirting after I asked him not to was sexual harassment, and the incident at homecoming was stalking. She wants me to print off my text messages with him and begin a folder of evidence to give to the school so it's documented. She informed me that there was a school therapist she thought I should consider, and assured me that as long as I wasn't a danger to myself or others, my parents wouldn't have to know, which I wanted to keep a secret for now. She asked me if it was okay to make an appointment with the school counselor, so he could refer me to the therapist legally. I agreed, and she's going to pull me out of PE tomorrow to meet with him. The last thing she asked me was if I wanted to drop out of her class, and the other class that I have with him. I don't think I'm going to, because this prick has done enough, and he doesn't get to take anything else away from me, thank God.
I work at a large crafting store in California, and have been there for a year and 8 months now. A little background before I explain what's going on. So last year, we hired a guy. We'll name him Hayden. Hayden was a little quiet on the first day, but quickly became more talkative, and over the next couple of weeks, started to never stop talking. He would constantly say weird shit. For instance, one day he was put in charge of building furniture. Our store carries stuff like furniture and home decor as well. He was apparently having difficulty assembling the table he was working on, and said something about cutting his wrist if he can't figure out how to put it together. Another time we were both working in a stock room, and he kept talking about how much he looked like the Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz. I'll admit he did in fact look like that kid, which was kind of creepy. I remember one day I had gotten off of work and was waiting for my ride to pick me up, when out of nowhere Hayden walked up behind me. He just stood there with an awkward smile on his face, and I politely asked him, "What's up?" He said something to the effect of, "Oh, nothing, just enjoying my lunch break. I'm thinking about going inside Taco Bell, right across the parking lot from our work, and shanking someone." He pretty much laughed and said he was joking after that. When my wife picked me up, we saw him walking towards the Taco Bell, and just flashed us this creepy-ass ear-to-ear smile. So the last straw for me was when he and I were assigned to work our spring freight and get it loaded up on a large U-boat. Our shift started at 7 a.m. and was over at noon. It was 11, and we still hadn't finished our task because Hayden just wouldn't stop goofing around. He would also work very slowly on purpose, and would only take one item to the U-boat at once. Our boss came to where we were working and was upset that we weren't done yet. He told us we both get written up if the job wasn't finished before we were off. I was pissed off at this point, and Hayden knew it. He seemed to feel bad for pretty much getting me in trouble, and apologized. He then said something that really concerned me. He said in the most serious tone I had never heard him speak in since meeting him, "If I get fired, I'll shoot this place up." He went on to say that he knew where all the emergency exits are, and would first shoot all the cashiers, then move on to the other employees in the store. I'll admit, I didn't immediately report what he said, But it did have me on edge, and I kept thinking about what if. After some convincing from my wife, I finally did the right thing and informed my manager. They took a written report from me and contacted the police. After 2 more days of working with Hayden, he was fired and subsequently arrested for his threats. The week after he got arrested, my boss held a meeting with the entire staff and told everyone what happened. After everyone left the meeting, he pulled me aside and revealed to me what the police and Hayden talked about during the interrogation. I don't completely remember what he said, but Hayden apparently admitted that he said what he said and kept asking if I had been the one who reported him. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I was working at the same store. I still am. And I was heading to the break room for a final break when I heard a voice from one of the aisles to the left. A man was standing next to the paint case and asked if I could get him some paint. While I was opening the case, he addressed me by name, which I immediately thought was weird because I wasn't wearing my name tag on this particular day. Out of curiosity, I asked him how he knew my name, and he said it was just a lucky guess, to which I thought was BS, mainly because his tone of voice seemed very sarcastic. The entire time I was getting his paint, he was staring at me with a smirk on his face. He then began to ask me questions about my name, which is the same name of a popular TV show character. He asked what year I was born, why my parents decided to give me that name, etc. At this point, I started to walk away, and as I had other things to do, the whole time I was walking away, he was still trying to talk to me. I heard him yelling my name from 3 aisles down. I went and stood in the warehouse until I thought he was gone. Later that same day, one of my coworkers asked me if I knew the guy who was buying the paint, and I told her that I didn't. She told me that he had approached her and asked her all kinds of questions about me, like if I'm a good worker, and if she likes me as a coworker. This is an ongoing issue too, as he's come into the store 2 other times, one being yesterday during my day off, and apparently asked where I was. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that this guy might be cousins with Hayden, as they sort of look alike and have similar mannerisms. Both look similar to the Parkerland shooter, and have the same creepy vibe. This might not be the scariest thing on here, but it's still pretty freaky. Tonight, I worked the closing shift, and was outside getting carts after the store closed at 8 p.m. when 2 SUVs pulled onto the parking lot. One of them parked behind the store, and the other one parked in the main parking lot. I was standing in front of the entrance doors when a man dressed in all black and wearing a hood stepped out of one of the SUVs. Another guy walked up next to him, and they both started approaching the store. I politely told them that we were closed, and then I looked down to notice a large baseball bat in a hoodie guy's hand. I started repeatedly ringing the bell to be let back inside, and these 2 guys were just pacing back and forth in the lot, staring right at me. My manager let me in and called the police. The guys were long gone when they got there. This could have easily been a totally unrelated incident, but I thought I'd still update because the whole thing makes me think it could be you-know-who.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.